Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks everyone for that lovely warm applause. Congratulations on this film. Not an easy thing to make a film, and I imagine you've sort of set yourself. They are a married couple in real life, so we'll go into that more perhaps later. But Ryan, this is your second film, and your first film was it was a soldier's story about a post-traumatic stress disorder and a soldier coming home from the war. This one seems like it's a little closer to home, perhaps. I don't know your history.
My first film was about a soldier coming back from the war in Iraq, suffering from PTSD, and it was very much a social issue movie. And I like to make movies that have socially relevant themes. And with XY, I think that it still contains a strong socially relevant theme. I mean, it deals with modern relationships and how we connect with one another and how difficult it is to make lasting relationships in this really fast-moving society. I think that's kind of a theme that's been in my work is dealing with what are we, as a society, what kind of issues are we really confronted with right now?
They say, though, that you should write about what you know, especially as a young filmmaker. Yet this is about a couple, facing difficult times. What did you draw on when you were writing the script?
Well, it's very personal. I think for me, at the time when I was writing it, I was going through a really intense time of just self-reflection and trying to understand the relationships in my life, and also observing a lot of people around me and the relationships that I was really close to. And what I saw was a lot of people were really struggling to build lasting relationships. Relationships that were based on substance and not just like fast, Tinder interactions or whatever. And so I pulled a little bit from my own life. I mean, it's not really based on my life at all, but I definitely more so watched the lives of the people around me and tried to tap into what that struggle, was that I was witnessing. It was a combination of a little bit of both.
And America, when you read the script, did you read it as a wife or as an actress? Can you separate those two?
I think a little bit of both, but I think primarily he didn't tell me he was writing this script. He was actually writing a completely different script, and called me and said, "I'm going to send you this script I wrote in 6 days." So that was a surprise, and when I read it, it was so, it was a surprise to me that this world and these characters and this story just sort of tumbled out of him in 6 days. And of course, we worked on the script from there on, but that first draft really came out very naturally and with ease. And these were obviously characters and voices that wanted to come out. And specifically to the Sylvia character that I ended up playing, I didn't immediately like her or like that character. All of these characters have intense flaws and are kind of self-absorbed and selfish in ways that I recognized in myself and in my generation. And so I think as an actor, it was exciting the challenge of seeing a character whose, flaws are not very attractive on page or on screen, and having to create a character that an audience can eventually, or even in the smallest way, try and understand where her behavior is coming from. And I think that she and the other characters seem familiar to a lot of people our age, people who are standing in their own way of what they think they want, and how, as Ryan said, our daily culture doesn't help us get there. It doesn't bring the best out of us all the time.
When you decided to produce it together, I mean, was it always a given that you would play Sylvia, the character who's breaking up with you?
No, not at all. I didn't write it with her in mind. I just wrote it as a piece that of something I wanted to explore. But when I gave her the script, she wasn't, like she said, she wasn't immediately connected to Sylvia. But we worked on it for a little while, a few months, and
And we talked about what other actresses could play her,
Yeah.
and we, explored other actresses playing the role. And I think through our conversations, especially about that character, because she is, could easily be perceived as the bad guy in the film. For me, the portrayal of women in stories like this is really important to me as an actress, but also as an audience member and as a woman who cares about what portrayals of women are out there. We talked a lot about, let's not make her the bad guy, because that's just not the way the world works. Let's try and figure out how the bad thing that she did was rooted and came from something real. And so through all those conversations, I think ultimately I felt like I understood the character and felt for her, and that it would be a great challenge to try and make her feel real.
They say, and they know everything, but they say, never marry a writer because your life will come into the art. Did that worry you? You're reading this script and, I don't know, do you ever worry that your personal life will tip over into his scripts?
I think this is not the first time that our personal life tips into his art. He's a photographer, he's a painter, he's a writer and a director, and, he, not just me, but all of our friends have ended up in his work and his art. And I think what's funny is all of our friends who read the script or watched the movie see themselves in the work, or they place themselves in the art and say, oh, you took that from me, or that's, that you based Jen on me. And the truth is it's more blurry than that. I think that I think the selfish part of us wants to see ourselves in our as our friends' inspirations, but I think his inspirations are a little bit more amorphous than that. And but I'm okay with our art being reflective of who we are as people, as a couple, who are constantly exploring, questions about, what's the root of the things we look at in our society that we have questions about. And I'm okay with us, digging into our personal lives, because I think that that's where the really good stuff is. I think that as artists, what we have to offer is our unique experience and our view of things that no one else can go out and share. It's ours to share. And as he said, it's not an autobiographical film, but it is, it is based on our observations of our own lives and our friends' lives.
Well, I think that's when you get truthful filmmaking, when you bring your own truth to something, and you can see that on the screen. You were married fairly recently. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You should never congratulate the bride. Did you know that? You only
I'm very
congratulate
lucky.
the groom. Because you don't need to be congratulated.
He's the lucky one.
He's the lucky
and I'm
one,
very
exactly.
aware of that, yeah.
And then you're working together on this as producers, as director and actress. Talk us through a typical day, on the set, and how your relationship works. Which hats do you wear when?
Yeah, well, I think, speaking a little bit more generally first about that, it's really amazing to be able to work with your partner. I don't think it works for everybody, but for us, it really works nicely because we know each other so intimately. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and to have somebody.
Well, I don't have any weaknesses,
She has no weaknesses.
Less for you to know.
I'm a big ball of weakness. No, but we really know each other so deeply that we can be there to support each other more than I think anyone else could be there to support us. So that's really amazing to be able to work with somebody who has your back, and you'll have their back. So in general, it was an incredible experience. A typical day, when you're in the groove of making the movie, there's not much time for anything personal, especially as a writer-director, and I was also acting in it. I would get up at like 5 a.m, prepare for the day for an hour, get to set. You're bombarded with questions, and somewhere in there you have to prepare as an actor. You dive in. Maybe we're working together, maybe we're not. When we were working together, we had an acting coach on set that was there. This woman, Kim Gillingham, who was there to just be our guardian. Somebody who could mediate between us, who could be our protector, who could offer us feedback, and that was incredible. And that was kind of an essential element for us to be able to work with one another. So then when you're done with the day, you get home and you might have a little food and prepare for the next day, and then immediately crash and get 4 hours of sleep. So it wasn't. We didn't have much personal time, but at the same time, we were with each other all day.
Yeah, we were both in it, so we didn't
Yeah.
have to come home and try and recap the day to one another. We were there, and my list of things I did to be supportive of him ranged from being on set and being behind the camera when he was in front of the camera, but also sometimes it was just forcing him to drink a green juice because he wasn't eating all day. So the lines between personal and business get blurred, and this was a small budgeted film, and we shot all of our scenes together that were in the movie acting with one another. We shot in the first 3 days of filming, and they were all in the apartment that we were shooting in, not our apartment, someone else's apartment. But we slept those first 3 nights in that apartment, in that bed. So we'd shoot all day in the bed and then go to sleep in that bed and literally wake up on set, have coffee and work, and then go back to bed on set. So this was, I would say, probably one of the most challenging experiences that we jumped into together, both professionally, personally, relationship-wise. We just dove in head first, and neither one of us stayed on shore. We were both like in the water saying, are you okay? Are you breathing? I'm breathing. Okay, let's make it through the next day. It took a lot out of both of us, but I have to say, I think on the other side of that, while it wasn't the most personal, there wasn't time for much personal stuff, I think we came out the other side more bonded in a different way than we had been in our relationship.
Nice to hear. Talking of that bed, the film does open with a pretty intense, intimate scene. What was it like directing yourself, having sex with your own wife, playing a part?
And it was bad sex, too.
And it was
Bad sex?
too, which we've never had before.
It's just acting, just imagining what bad sex is like.
It was intense. It was intense. It was the first shot of the first day of shooting, and I did a kind of a strange thing. I decided that I was just going to be naked in front of everybody all day, because I felt like, look, I want to make myself vulnerable so that everybody else can see that what we're trying to make, and put everybody in the same mood of like, we're all going to be exposed here on this shoot. And if we're going to start this movie off with a really bad sex scene, then I'm going to be the first one to like share the goods. So it was really intense, but I think that we had a coach on set. We obviously had done a lot of work together in talking about what the scene was going to be like, and so you just dive in, and you don't really have much time to think about it. I mean, literally dive in. You don't have much time to think about it, and you hope that you're protected by a lot of people around you that want you to succeed. And luckily, we had an amazing crew that really just tapped into what we were trying to do and were there to support us. But it's scary. It's really scary. And to think then it's going to be on screen for everybody to watch is even more scary. But luckily, I got to edit it, or be in the editor room. So
there was nothing comfortable about making this movie.
No, nothing comfortable about making this film.
Yeah.
At all.
So did you walk around naked on the set too?
No, absolutely not.
A man's prerogative. And keeping going with the sex, sorry to belabor the sex, because it's a film about relationships. It's about sex. There's a sex scene, a couple of other sex scenes in the movie, notably with Common.
Yeah.
Hot Common, who gave the most amazing speech, didn't he, on Sunday night
he was
at the
incredible.
Oscars?
Such a
Possibly the
moving-
best speech of the night. It was amazing.
He really got to the heart of what we're there to do. But Common is one of the loveliest human beings we've ever met or worked with. And the way that we picked Common, it was actually kind of funny. We'd been talking about, who I was going to have my sex scenes with. And we were watching, I think, the Spirit Awards last year. And we were watching the red carpet, and I go, ooh, what about Common?
And I was like, oh, really? You think Common is, okay, all right.
So it's fun to get to cast your own on-screen lover. it's awkward when you have to ask your husband's permission, but...
Yeah.
Was it everything you'd hoped for?
There's not a lot that's very sexy about shooting sex scenes. Common is obviously a very sexy man, and you're right. There is a lot of sex in this movie, but what I think that through the sex, and Ryan can speak more to this, the sex is the least intimate thing about these relationships, and it's the first thing that all the characters go to. It's the connection that they think is going to give them what they're looking for, which is a deeper intimacy. And they're all afraid of intimacy because we don't live in a culture that teaches us how to have intimacy. And it doesn't not only teach us, but most of what we do in our culture in this country pulls us away from intimacy, pulls us away from intimacy with ourselves. I had to take social media off my phone so that I would take 5 minutes in a cab to sit and breathe and digest whatever I was coming from before I got to the next thing I was going to, because I realized not only was I not listening to other people, I wasn't even listening to myself. I wasn't sitting with myself. So I think, intimacy there's a lack of it in our society, and we can't find it with ourselves. We can't find it with each other. And these characters in this film go to the sex as a vehicle, as a quick fix of, I connected with somebody. And so the sex comes easy, and it's the moments of true intimacy that we have to work really hard towards in the film.
Well, I think first of all, I think it's a very 21st century film in that it approaches the subject of sex and, hooking up, and Melanie Diaz's character. There are 4 main characters. First of all, I loved her character, hysterical. But she hasn't maybe reached your character's level yet. She's still kind of searching in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
But OK Cupid, the internet hookups, that kind of stuff. That I feel like your film really speaks to this generation.
Yeah. Melanie's character, she was one of my favorite character. I mean, she's just trying to find love and trying to find a connection, but doesn't have the tools. She's not equipped to really see it or understand how to build those kind of real meaningful relationships. And so she struggles so hard throughout the movie. But I think so many people are faced with that challenge. It's like, we operate so quickly that a lot of our connections can be so surface level and quick, and then you can move on to the next thing. So what the movie really explores is the difficulty and the rewards that are associated with really building, strong connections. Our characters in the movie go through a very tough trajectory, but at the end, you realize that these two people have a really strong connection, and whereas it's not going to be easy, they still have a deep love for each other. So throughout the movie, I investigate different levels of relationships with, Mark's character, with Sylvia's character, with Jen, with Jake. They're all going through their own struggles, but what I was hoping to investigate was kind of the different levels of relationships that are present in our society. So when audiences watch it, they might say, hey, that's me, or that's my friend, or I want people to recognize themselves in different characters.
There's also some nice, very non-judgmental sex between 2 men, which I thought, there's no statement. I just felt like it was a natural exploration of affection and sexuality without labeling.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to give too much away because you guys haven't seen it, so I'm trying to talk about something without giving too much away.
I won't say who goes through that, but yeah, there's a sex scene between 2 guys in the movie, and both of them are at a really, really they're in a desperate place in their life where they're very isolated and very lonely. And in the movie, they're best friends, and they, in that sex scene, they find a connection with one another that is deep and real and raw. And through that connection, it helps heal them each of them in their own way. And what I wanted to explore was this idea of connection and sexuality and what it means to really be connected with one another as people in society. So I didn't want to make a statement about homosexuality or being a heterosexual. I just wanted it to be about two people connecting deeply, and I'm really proud of that scene. I think that it shows two people who saw a need in one another and were able to help each other connect. And in the movie, it's actually one of the strongest connections you see in the whole film. That combines the physical and the emotional. Yeah.
And it's hot. What kind of director is your husband?
Well, it's different. We've worked on a few projects together. We worked on his first feature film where he was just a director. This time, he did something that I think, he's probably clinically insane for doing it. Trying to act and direct at the same time, I think, is crazy. I think it's a crazy thing to do. And, the first time around, he was just directing and had such a handle and a hold and was there for every moment and every single thing that any actor might need, or any crew member on the set. But this time around, he made that choice to dive in as an actor and come up as a director, which I think also made it feel more like a communal experience. The DP really had to, take the reins and be watching the screen and the ADs. And when Ryan was on camera and I wasn't, I was in the back. So this time he was able to ask for more support and ask for more help, which, I think is not a comfortable thing as a director. I don't know, he can speak more to that. But, I think the experience every time I've worked with him as a director is the strength of community and the strength of collaboration, that everybody on set feels very much like they're there for a reason. They're there to bring alive the same vision, and all very supportive of him. He's lovely to work for. I'm going to get paid for that later. And has such strong visions and makes scary choices. As I said before, there was nothing comfortable about making this movie. And we asked our friends to come along with us on this journey, and he was willing to kind of ask of people to step outside of their comfort zone and try and create, a story that felt very raw and very exposing to all of us on set.
So your appetites should be whetted by now. So do we have some questions from the audience? There's a microphone coming around. Just raise your hand if you'd like to grab the microphone. Anyone? Mm-hmm. They're all dying to ask about the sex scenes.
Hi, thanks for coming. I was wondering, with your experience with this film, are you guys planning to collaborate on future projects? Is there anything planned in the near future or down the road?
We're always working with each other in different capacities. I don't think we have anything specifically. Actually, we have one project we're working on together that I'm going to produce, and she's going to direct. So that'll be interesting. It'll be a lot of fun to be able to support her in the way that she supported me. So we'll tell you more about that later.
In the film, your character is a writer, and he's pitching a script idea, and you sort of take a stab at the Hollywood machine, I guess, by your agent saying, "Well, Warner's interested, but it has to have a chase scene at the end." Yeah. You obviously didn't make a film with a chase scene at the end. You kept it low key. There's also a line in the movie about, no one will see a movie except 5 hipsters living in Williamsburg. Concern? I mean, you've made a small, intimate film without a chase scene, but there's lots of sex. So, on the other hand.
I mean, I think that, I hope that more people see this film than 5 hipsters in Williamsburg. But but at the same time, I think what I was really trying to say with that whole speech was that, you can bring a higher quality of storytelling to the mainstream. And not that we're necessarily going to hit the mainstream, but I feel like as a filmmaker, I want to challenge myself to tell, real stories with depth and demand more out of the audience than I think a lot of people will demand out of an audience because they're smart enough. And so for me, that's what that was about. Rather than who's actually going to see my movie, because who knows? You can't control that,
We do have another question.
for America. I wanted to know how you feel about the presence of Latino actors in Hollywood, and any advice for Latino actors that want to be more up and coming and more present.
Yeah. Well, as a member of our society and as an audience member, I take it very personally when I see depictions of modern day that make me feel invisible as a woman, as a Latina, as all the different cross sections of who I am as a person. I like to look at the art around me and see my experience reflected in it a little bit. And so, as an audience member, I'm sitting around sometimes wondering, what New York does that person live in? Because the New York I live in does not just have a bunch of people who look exactly the same. So as an audience member, I care about it and I take it personally. As an actress, I think it's frustrating to see the limited amount of good roles out there for women, the limited amount of meaty roles out there for people of color. And I believe that it's even more frustrating to see how few people are in the positions of creating those roles. We need to see more diversity, or rather anyone who's not a white man behind the camera, writing, creating, directing. It's important. It's important not so that a Latina actress has an opportunity in Hollywood. It's important because art is meant to be a reflection of the world we live in. And sometimes when I look at the entertainment, which I think should be art and can be art, there doesn't have to be such a distinct line between entertainment and art, as we've seen in so many beautiful films this year. I think that the job of art is to challenge us, to push us forward. And sometimes when I watch what's out there, it feels like it's kind of behind us in terms of the times. And so I think it's crucial and pivotal and necessary that, that our industry catch up with the reality of the world that we live in, which is that there's so many of us and there's more that connects us than separates us, but it's important that we see the dimensions in our entertainment that exist in our world. I think it's very important.
Thank you. We have one more question. Right here.
Hello. I was a big Ugly Betty fan, and I'm curious to hear your take on what do you think Betty would be doing right now?
I'm sure she's CEO of something. I don't know. Would it be weird if I just had a really good answer for that? Like I sit at home and think about it all the time? I also loved Betty, so thank you. I loved playing her. I grew up as that character, with that character. I miss her all the time. There are times where we've talked about, and fans talk about there being a reunion or movie or episode or something to kind of catch up with that character in that world. I don't know. I mean, I bet she's doing okay. I bet she's doing pretty good. I don't know what Betty's doing. She's not real.
She's not real.
She lives inside of me.
Maybe you should write that movie. I think that would be, there seems to be a movie about every TV show. We have Entourage coming out. Why not Ugly Betty? People would love to see that. There you go, your next project.
Exactly.
So while we wait for Ugly Betty, the movie, everyone go see XY and enjoy it. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.